Okay. The market's about to open, and I got an idea here for doing a moving average crossover system that's very tight. And I want to just do a video and imagine that I built a robot for this. Now, I tried in MetaTrader earlier to build a robot that traded on a one period, I got a 1 period moving average, and then the next moving average is going to be 2 periods. So every time the 1 period crosses the 2 period, I'm buying, and every time it goes the other way, I'm selling. And so I just ran MetaTrader, and it was doing great when it started, but then it didn't get out of the damn trade when it was supposed to. And that's because the risk to reward ratios or whatever, and how much you were going to load up on each one of those ideas really couldn't compare to you manually dropping all the orders. And so it kind of blows the whole notion of trying to use any kind of back testing is in terms of that. I mean, you just have to forward test it, right? Just like you would forward test your drive to the store, you would just figure, I'm going to the store. I mean, anything could happen. But on the 4-hour charts, I'm thinking if you could have, if the EA actually was going to buy on these crossovers, it's got to have scalps built in. It's got to have, it's also got to have some type of notice of the range of the last 4 hours. In other words, the last 12 hours. So if we got how many bars here of quietness. Now this is still a 50 pip grid here, and so when the market gets in below a 50 pip volatility window, the robot starts to of course you could just do this visually. You start to put the buy stops here because you're getting into this quiet zone, and the robot's going to buy maybe on the close of this, a late entry, but he's getting in, right? He closed above. The crossover actually happened here. Now, I don't know if the robot can see that right there in midstream. So on the 1 hour, it's already crossed over, right? In other words, here, the robot's still long on the 1 hour, right? So maybe it's probably better to build a 1 hour robot and then just, I think if you go any smaller than a 1 hour on this idea, you're going to have a problem with not taking enough off the table every 2 to 3 hours, right? You have to be making some kind of money. Like if you're a 24-hour restaurant, there's the rush hour, but there's always how do you make money off of these people that just buy coffee? Well, yeah, that's making 5 pips on a trade, right? They're just the people that are doing the coffee. In fact, they just bought 1 cup of coffee, and now you're getting your ass kicked because they're not buying any more treats, and they're just, can I get a refill? And you're doing 3 pots of coffee, buddy, for 92 cents plus tax. I mean, they were $1.30 out the door. We get out of here, right? And then they call the loitering team, right? Have them removed. So yeah, the 1 hour robot, if you can imagine. Now here's the 4-hour world, so you're going to get whipsawed a little bit, of course. At this point, you can just visually trade this, right? I think the ultimate robot is going to be a 1 hour robot, if you're going to build one, right? Now, you could build one, and anybody wants to give me the thing where I can put in multiple orders, right? I mean, yeah, right, because, you can build the EA to do a static, like, okay, actually, this would be the answer, So I just brainstormed that. Okay, now, if you have... get hold of about 5 computers. Just get 5 tablets for $100 a piece. Use beat up 7-inch screen. Who cares? 3-inch screen, right? And or whatever. Create mini computers, and then just run an EA that does nothing but scalp, right? But it's on the same idea where it's just going to get in when the market goes up. I mean, it's as tight as you can get. And this is what these smooth. Well, the whole idea of Heikin-Ashi is to take it and smooth it out one level. So if you can imagine this being a 1 hour robot, well, he's long from here all the way, blah, 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 and he's taken off money on the table on this. So he's biased to go up, right? Now he's biased to go down, and this is he's short here, but if he didn't get, he's also going to go long here, so he's going to get his ass kicked here, right? But in the end, he's short for another 3 hours, so he's good. Just go through it wouldn't matter, right? Just go the 1 hour, every currency pair is running the same algorithm. But my fear is that I've never actually run an EA. I've always just I've either traded in the market, or I placed pendings, or I just ran these giant order bank scripts that kind of shotgun the market, or precision drop entry. But not to say you can't get some kind of like the robot's going to get long here, because the robot has to be told for sure that when you're going to get in a 20 pip thing, you got to take at least 10 to 20 pips, 30, 40 off the table as you're coming out of this. Now the other answer is to just look at your screen and say, what would the robot think? And then just drop the appropriate order. Actually, you could probably do a little bit better than the robot, just because if the 4 hour train is still in buy mode, I mean, there's just literally, imagine this thing, you're only taking shorts here. This is the only moving average crossover system this is the only way I'd want to step outside of what's really happening. So if you were recording, say you had somebody come to your recording studio and you record them, if they're not good at playing, it doesn't matter, right? And then once they do the performance, even if you've got the worst kind of gear on the planet, I don't know, you take that to some place. In other words, if you capture that properly, you take it somewhere, they don't have to touch it hardly. You really don't have to, there's not too much you want to go beyond. You want to hug the market as tightly as you can. It's bad enough that I'm plotting the close, right? So the other answer would be to create, and I try to do this too, is just create in other words, if you told this moving average, just plot the highs, right? And it would box in the whole. And there's people that trade like that, right? Because they see the market as a snake. They see this as like, oh, well, this is like this thing. And when it breaks out here, not every breakout trade is terrible, but certainly this one. Okay, the robot, he gets in here on that breakout, and if he goes too tight on the stop, he's out. So definitely the trend, when this thing gets into a 50 pip range, or here's about 40 pips, right, on these guys, you're just, but we're back up at resistance here, right? But you can just go through each one of these. Now the daily, I don't think this would work, right? Because you're just going to get whipsawed, right? I just can't imagine. And a lot of the robots I experimented with earlier, when I was, of course, here you make the argument, right? But for God's sakes, I mean, you're going to get in on this pullback, really. Like, this is just ridiculous, right? If you're getting on stops there, so I think it's kind of pointless on the daily, because just because I don't trade the daily like that. I mean, I would just think more in terms of a different view of the market on a daily or even a weekly. Now the weekly looks amazing, right? I mean, nice and smooth, but here still whipsawed. Now this would be trying to follow the so-called smart money. I mean, that's another hilarious term, like smart money. Like, it's just the market. You're gonna make it like all the dumb people are taking the bad trades. Really? I mean, how these banks getting their ass kicked? If that banks are that sophisticated, how come they're not just cleaning up in Forex and going, we don't need a bailout, dude? We make so much money trading. And that's why I'm just come down on top of these people that say, yeah, I know professional bankers and stuff. Really? You mean the guys that jump out windows because they're like, I just blew up my own account thinking I could trade Forex? But I mean, come on, really? Right, but the 1 hour robot, I think, is kind of doable in the sense of it's going to be a scalp bot on some level, and it's going to get, in other words, here you're going to get chopped, but the filter would have to be when we get into a 20 pip range, right? So if you imagine, of course, it's just easier to do this visually, I think, and just, put the damn order here. Now, I smoothed it out by one period, so I can actually draw trend lines that have a little more substance to them, because they're based on at least the 2-period EMA, right? So I can kind of see a lot clearer the this triple bottom where on the black line, which is the in other words, I only had 2 points of verification here. Now this top becomes a bottom, and it's also the 2 periods bottom from here. Right, so you got this top became a bottom on the 2 period, and you got a window. So this, if you do this, forget the robot part of it. If you look at this kind of this big mountain peak in black, and then there's the 1 period moving average beneath. So you can say, well, that's my volatility index on some level. If I come off of this top, which you can't mistake, right? You can see we spike up there, but the 2 period, all that stuff's happening underneath. So you could have 2 trend lines here, right? If you wanted to have like a trend line crossover system, because you're going to base it on this lag of, really it's a 1 period lag, right? So if this is 1, this is 2, it's actually a difference of 1, right? So if you're hanging it off of this, you can see it's like a trend line confirmation entry to smooth it out 1 level, right? So if you drew this on the actual if you drew this one on the actual white line, I guess, which is actually here, then this would be the 2 period. Oh, I'm sorry. Make this one the black. So the black missed the expectations. If you're just taking the 1 period, you missed it here, right? They just could not target that top angle. And then this one, you're going to hang on the inside of just the only place you can cue it up is this triple top. And that's enough of an offset right there to create a whole different world between this peak and that peak, that volatility window on this major reversal point where we plunge all the way back to this 1 period pivot, and the 2 period pivot becomes the next window. So I'm giving a little breathing room with this idea of going to a 2 period moving average, which is almost anything past that. Now you're really smoothing it out a little too much, and this would be like if somebody came over to record with you and they showed up and their dynamic range was already compressed to nothing. You could not re-expand that later in the mix because you just bring up all the noise. So they have to come in with the most dynamic performance in the world, and that's why the old recordings sound good, because they just sat there and let the gear kind of put it in a room that it could only fit in. The meters actually went to 0, and if you bias the machines, you kind of like, well, you're in the window, right? So just like what you're looking at this window on the chart of the world, this is like, well, if I zoom out, you're like, wait a minute, what kind of trade is that? What are you doing? But I mean, if you're living in a 1 hour world, like, you don't care, right? I mean, so, look at this triple top. Now the 1 period moving average of that triple top is here, but you don't want to get too many, and this is actually just almost a horizontal. And that crossover is a little bit later because this one is smoothing out and really taking the wicks out too, because all it's smoothing is close. Now you could do the formula where this was based on high plus low. In other words, you could split it so that all these moving averages were actually not, like, the next one isn't just close, or even the one that's plotting right now isn't just close. It's like an Akinashi where it's going to do the it's going to say, okay, we're going to take the high and the low and the close and the open, and we're going to average them all out and divide by 4. And that right there is a very subtle difference. I've experimented with linear weighted moving averages. I actually like, because it has more of a momentum look to it where it overshoots the runway too. So, but I'm keeping it exponential just because that's almost like, in other words, there's no smoothing. I think it's less smooth than a linear weighted moving average. It sounds like there's more math on that. Like you're going to actually compress it one more time to try to get all the noise out. But yeah, to denoise it, 2-period EMA denoises it pretty damn good. At least it takes, like, look at this window here on this 1 period compared to the 2 period. And of course those wicks are just steep as hell. But if you're going to put your support, your resistance support levels in, you're going to get 2 there. Well, you can't really see too much of the other one. You see the double bottom that's just sharp as hell on the actual real close, and then you can kind of use that 2 period to draw these semi well, you can see the pattern easier, right? You can see the wedge, you can see this big, all these roads lead down to this, and then of course this is the big trend line to break out, but you want to be long going into that. And but the people that are late to the game, they got a robot here. This is a 1 hour chart. The robot there has got a buy stop. Yeah, but wow, what if it rips back like it did when it took out this area, right? So, but I think if you know when the market's quiet, you've got your breakouts on deck ready to launch if you're going to launch them right then, or they're the tight orders, right? You have buy stops and buy limits, and maybe one buy at the market. If you come to your platform every hour, you could kind of see, well, here 4 hours down in this New Zealand dollar, you're already thinking, wow, I mean, really, it's coming back to here, I'm getting in. And then of course even the robot, he would go long a little bit later, maybe on the next bar, and then he's going to get chopped here, right? He's going to go into sell mode here. So it's really not, like definitely the robot's going to have to be almost 50% scalping all the time. But, for the person that views this target all the way up here, okay, so the market just opened here. So I got to try to make some money here. And I think I'm going to bring up this other account. So I got to open one of these accounts here. Yeah, this is okay, here it is. Oh, another gap down, great. So I'm going to buy this as it plunges. This broker's going to let me buy. So another gap open on the euro. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. You got to believe, I mean, geez, it's just beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to buy here too, and I'm going to run these orders, and then I'm going to put some drops in later. But yeah, this is just, I mean, this is just, oh my, this is the beautiful. Oh, it's just a buyer's dream right now. So I'm buying like crazy. I'm just going to buy so much euro tonight. Anyways, just a thought there about moving average crossover systems, that you can run them super tight. And I just think they would be so funny. Of course, if that robot could have the money management skills built into it, it definitely would. But you'd have to turn him off before maybe the news, because if he's going to get in on stops and all that stuff, and but those EAs can lock up and freeze the whole system, unfortunately. You know how that can be.